mit der Akzeptanz der vier Grundfreiheiten und dazu gehört auch die Freizügigkeit der Personen. Brexit means Brexit.
Hello and welcome to another Brexitometer brought to you by the Martin Centre. Life in the UK is slowly getting back to normal, and you know we're moving back to normal because we just had the Eurovision Song Contest where the UK placed a glorious last with 0 points. So yes, normality is indeed returning to our lives. The big political news out of London is, of course, the testimony of Dominic Cummings, the once trusted advisor of Boris Johnson, who has decided to take down the house with him by highlighting all the major flaws and all the major failures of the British government in handling the early stages of the pandemic. We'll have more on that later. But behind all the major political news, Brexit still marches on. Brexit still shapes the relationship of the EU with the UK, and also still shapes broader developments in European politics beyond British shores. So let's go have a broad overview of political developments and all the ways that Brexit influences them. Our Brexit journey this week starts with Australia and the UK-Australia Free Trade Agreement that is currently the biggest Brexit item in Westminster. Of course, Australia was always a big prize for Brexiteers. Remember, Brexit was always about the UK being free to do its own free trade agreements, and Australia fits the profile perfectly. It's an open, dynamic economy. It's in the Asia-Pacific. Of course, it belongs to the Commonwealth. It's an English-speaking country. It's the wet dream of conservative Brexiteers about breaking off from European regulations and embracing the world and embracing the buccaneering spirit of British entrepreneurship and finding again the legacy of the Commonwealth and the legacy of the Empire. Now, of course, there is a problem with free trade agreements, and especially with free trade agreements that you have to negotiate on your own now instead of doing it through Brussels. Free trade agreements have a bad habit of producing not only winners, but also losers. And in this specific case, the main problem is the British agricultural sector. Australia has a very dynamic, very open, very high volume agricultural sector, and it has said that it will not conclude a free trade agreement with the UK unless the UK drops any tariffs to Australian agricultural products. Now, this would be really bad news for British farming, particularly farming in Wales and Scotland, which also brings in the whole question of the union of the different nations in the UK. So basically the British government is now divided in camps with supporters of the free trade agreement on the one end and supporters of the agricultural lobby on the other end. Remember, farmers in the UK were promised that Brexit will all be fine, that once the UK leaves the common agricultural policy, things will be fine, and of course British farmers have strong connections to the Conservative Party. So what will happen in the end? Smart money is that the free trade agreement will be reached at some point. Boris Johnson is a big supporter. As someone said, if the UK cannot do a deal with Australia, then what was the point of Brexit? But this whole episode shows you that there is a price to getting back control, as the Brexit slogan was. If you get back control, the bad thing is that then the voters know who to blame when things go wrong. But Brexit has a long tail in Europe as well, and the EU is currently experiencing a Brexit-like situation in its relationship with another of its rich, affluent, dynamic, open economy neighbors, Switzerland, a country whose economy is deeply integrated into the European market, but who decided to suspend negotiations with the EU on a new framework agreement that would regulate their relationship. The reason is that the EU-Switzerland relationship has long been governed by a series of bilateral deals, and the EU wanted to replace those deals with this new framework agreement. Brexit doesn't really have to do much with that. The EU wanted to do that already before Brexit, but Brexit created this new political context where the EU really wanted to make sure that not being a member of the EU should not come with added benefits. A non-EU member should not get the best of both worlds. Now the Swiss decided to walk away from the table, and therefore suddenly the EU finds itself in the situation with yet another European neighbor where the relationship is in limbo. Now, observers of Brexit will notice some interesting analogies between the UK and Switzerland. Just like in the UK, in Switzerland, concerns with freedom of movement are quite important. The Swiss would rather take the economic hit than allow full freedom of movement from the EU. Just like in the UK, in Switzerland, concerns about political independence are important, and just like in the UK, in Switzerland, there will have to be a referendum to approve any deal, and the Swiss political class is not comfortable that it will manage to get an agreement with the EU passed from the Swiss electorate. So this all shows you that just like with Brexit, other parts of Europe as well may be falling off the EU regulatory orbit. I think the EU has to learn to live with the fact that it is not anymore the golden standard of where the whole of Europe moves. Actually, the EU is just one political and economic order among many within the European continent. Europe is getting increasingly fragmented, and the EU is just one piece of the many different fragments. So now to the juicy bit, the part that you were all waiting for, the Dominic Cummings revelations about the early failings of the Boris Johnson government in managing the pandemic. Cummings testified in the House of Commons, and he made sure to take the whole House down with him. We heard lots of juicy bits about how Boris Johnson in the early days said that he wanted to be injected with COVID on live TV to prove that there's nothing bad with it. We heard about how many leading figures of the British government were still away skiing in February when they should be managing the pandemic. So Cummings definitely did not disappoint from the news angle of all of this. Now the question is, what do those revelations mean? What do they show about the way the UK government handled the pandemic? I think there's two ways to look at it. One is the more personal, gossipy part of it, and it has to do with Boris Johnson. And I think that's still important because this is yet another example about how Boris's relaxed, cavalier style of leadership may actually have real-world consequences. We cannot disengage the early failures of the British government from Boris's personal leadership style. But I think Cummings also highlights something more, and he also made sure to focus on that, which is that there are structural problems in the way the British civil service works, and I think he also highlights indirectly things that are structurally wrong with the way governments work in the Western world more broadly. It's not just the UK, but we have seen failures across Europe and in North America. I think what we should take from the Cummings revelations is this idea that our states, our administrations have to be better equipped to deal with a crisis in the future. I think that's the main takeaway from the Dominic Cummings affair. So that was another episode of the Brexitometer, an episode that took us to many exotic places: Australia, Switzerland, Dominic Cummings' brain. You could say that Brexit is one long, adventurous journey, and we are here for the ride. Of course, we're going to have more developments in the future. Ireland is always an issue. Negotiations between the UK and the EU about various issues. Questions at the border, questions about regulating the movement of Europeans to the UK. There's lots of stuff coming up, and we will be here to take stock and analyze them for you. Until we meet next time, you can always send me your questions using the hashtag Brexitometer on all major social media. Take care, enjoy the improving weather wherever you are. Get vaccinated if you have the chance. Until next time, take care.
Mit der Akzeptanz der vier Grundfreiheiten und dazu gehört auch die Freizügigkeit der Personen. Brexit means Brexit.